Okay.
We'll hold a public hearing, you can just ask if anyone has any questions or comments.
Okay.
And then if you want, I can talk about the rate ordinance now, or we can talk about it where it's in, under old business items.
Okay, that's okay. All right. Does anybody have any comments or questions?
And explain, if you want me to, or? Okay. So as you might be aware, the town of Michigantown is working on a sewer project. So the rate increase and later on this meeting, there will be a bond ordinance. All of those authorizations are part of that project. So before you tonight, for this public hearing, there's a rate ordinance that has 3 phases for a proposed sewer rate increase in order to provide the required funding for this project. So those rates were advertised in the newspaper. And the financial advisor was planning to be here tonight, but then had a conflict. So I do have the rate study that I can go over if you'd like, just to hit the high points. But if you have specific questions, I'll defer that to the financial advisor. So the rate ordinance was introduced at the last meeting, duly advertised. If anyone has questions about ordinance or the rates or project, now would be the time for the public to ask those questions. And we can go ahead and answer those, and then she'll close the public hearing and move on to the rest of the agenda.
Nothing.
Okay. So then we'll just say there's no.
There's no questions or comments. We will close the public hearing for the sewer rate increase. We will open the meeting for our regular, sorry. Has everybody had a chance to sign in? Make sure that, yes? Okay. Have everyone had a chance to look at the minutes? July. I'll make a motion to approve the July meeting minutes.
Well, I just saw those real fast.
Okay, that's okay.
My part. The pay for deputy town marshal this year is not 27, it is. My devil papers. It is 2781. Exactly.
I'll make a motion to approve amending the deputy marshal rate, 2781.
All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Has everyone had a chance to look at the claims for July and August?
Motion to approve the July, August 2020 claims.
Well,
The claims,
okay, we're gonna move the increase. That's the right line. Okay.
all in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right, the budget public hearing is set for September 15th, 2025 at 6:30, fire department. Budget hearing is October 15th, 2025 at 6:30, the fire department. We'll need to do a new trash ordinance for 2026 and 2027 rate increase per our contract.
I'll try to get that changed to be September 8th. I'll see what I can do.
Okay. All right,
I think I've got time, so I think I'm
okay.
Sure, you ordinance.
Additional appropriation for motor vehicle fund of 30,000 advertised July 30th, 2025, about appropriation.
I think you actually voted on it last time, but when we advertised, it said that you would vote tonight, so. Your copy of it too? It just says just that, yeah, that there's additional appropriation. I don't know if I'm possible or not. Maybe? Yeah.
We're just voting on the actual approval of the
Yes, you're
appropriation.
just voting on the
Okay.
money.
I'll make a motion to approve the additional appropriation for the 30,000.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Second reads the bond ordinance and sewage rate hearing. Vote.
Can we actually do the rate ordinance first? I know it's kind of combined here.
No, you're
Is it? So I should introduce myself. My name is Brenda DeGrace. I'm an attorney with Bozeman County and Evans, and we're working with the town in the capacity of bond counsel for this financing. And we work with cities and towns and schools, libraries, sort of public entities when they need to issue bonds or other types of financing for capital equipment projects. So that's our role in this financing. So the rate ordinance in front of you, as I mentioned earlier, this was introduced at your last meeting. The only difference is, after it was introduced and then we ran the notice in the paper, Pam realized that we had combined the trash rate and the sewer rate on the same appendix A, or exhibit A rather. So we're just making this a sewer rate ordinance, and then as you referenced above, you're gonna do a separate trash rate ordinance. It'll just be cleaner that way.
Okay.
The only revenues pledged for these bonds that will be issued in the future are the sewer revenues, not the trash revenues. So it'll just be cleaner from a documentation standpoint to have those things in separate ordinances. And I believe the trash is all done via a contract anyway. So there's a 2025 number, 26 number, a 27 number. So that's gonna change more frequently than sewer rates are not adjusted on a contract level. That is usually done after a rating or a rate study is performed by a financial advisor. And then they come back with what the necessary requirements are to support the expenses that the utility has. So there's sort of two different things, and it's good to have them separated, sure. So I wanted to just reference that in case someone's like, well, hey, last time we also had a column with the trash. So I just deleted that, and it's just for the sewer revenues. Now you'll see that there's a three phases are proposed here.
okay.
So the first phase would be effective upon adoption, and that's phase 1. And then there's a second phase, which would be effective in a year from now, July of 26. And then the third phase would be effective in 2027. And that would be an opportunity also for the town to kind of true this up based on what actual costs of construction are, other actual expenses of the utility. So this is aimed a little bit high to make sure that everything is covered based on current estimates for the project and construction. But the intent is to screw up and right size that third phase. It may not even be necessary, or it may be able to be reduced. So whenever you do a rate of ordinance, it's easier to lower it and you don't have to re-advertise versus trying to increase that after the advertising cost. So Right now, it's phase one, then a year phase two, and then a true up opportunity before phase three and 27. So I wanted to explain that. Also, I handed out the rate study. It looks like this. I think all of that was sent via email maybe a few weeks ago by Dan and Sean of Frontier Consulting. But, so this is their document. But I just wanted to bring a couple of things to your attention. There's different schedules here, and it shows like the current balances of your 2017 bonds. There's an A and a B. If you just flip through here, the first couple of pages, first thing I wanted to mention was Schedule 3. That's the proposed amortization schedule for the project that will be financed. So those bonds won't actually be issued until probably 2027 or 2028. The first payment that they're showing here as an estimate would be in 28. And you'll see that they have this going out. It would be a 40-year amortization schedule, which is what the maximum amortization schedule is allowed by rural development, which is the agency that these bonds will be purchased through. So that just helps lessen the impact on a yearly basis, and you can start the payments out of last program. So that's Schedule 3. Schedule 4 shows the current debt of the sewage utility. There's bonds that were issued in 2017, currently outstanding, just under 900,000, and these will mature in 2038. And then you'll notice on the next schedule, this is like Series B. They did those in 2 series. And the payments on that one for the principal actually don't start until after your Series A is all paid off. You'll see there in July of 2038, that's when your principal payments on the Series A start, and that's 274,000. So right now, the town is just paying the interest payments on those, and they base the Series A and Series B, so you're only paying on one series at a time. I don't exactly know why they did that. My guess is that it was different types of the projects that were funded, and you can spread out certain different infrastructure longer based on the useful life. That's why, but it is not uncommon to see that done. So then, if you go to Schedule 6, this is a schedule of the combined debt service. And they'll see in 2028 when the anticipated payments for this financing would start. They have this schedule as the debt service level is steady, so it's about 14,000 every 6 months or so. So this will not be one of those financing where you have a big balloon at the end or some other surprise like that. It's level debt service throughout, which makes it a little easier as far as budgeting. So continue paging forward, Schedule 8 here. That's where they sort of will projected costs and revenues for 2028, which is when these bonds will be issued for the development. And they take into account the rate increase that they anticipate. Those revenues would be after the rate increases in effect. And then they've already factored in like a maximum debt service that's on an annual basis, which includes the principal and interest. And then there's a reserve account and debt service coverage. They're projecting that to be 1.38 in the ordinance, and on rural development, they require 1.25 coverage. So that's why the rate seems to increase to make sure that we have adequate coverage. Just it's a requirement when all bonds are issued that you have adequate coverage based on their projections. So, like I said, I'm not the financial advisor, but I want to just walk you through this a little bit. Schedule 9 has those present rates, the current rates, and then they also have a proposed rate column in there, and then it goes into more detail on Schedule 10, which is the next page. And this is the information that was included in the ordinance. That's before you for your consideration and adoption today. So, does anyone have any questions about these numbers or the process or the reason behind the rate increase and how that's going to work with the 3 phases? Okay, perfect. I don't know, was a number assigned to this ordinance at the last meeting, or you guys do this after your ordinance or.
We did not assign any, for this, and unfortunately, my computer is now.
That's okay,
I
you
got
can,
over there.
you can give it to me.
Okay, no, we're gonna do that.
Okay, so, anyone have questions, let me know, otherwise I'll turn it back over to you. For the rate ordinance solution.
Right. So. We need to read the top part of it, or just. We don't
So,
have
what
ordinance
is this
number.
part? Yeah.
An ordinance amending ordinance number 2024-3 of the town council of the town of Michigantown, Indiana, as previously amended, establishing a revised schedule of rates and charges, the use of and services rendered by the sewage works of the town and other matters associated therewith.
Today would be, we're returning to production.
Thanks, Ed. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I have a signature, we'll just, if you guys don't do that. We'll do, I'll leave one for you,
That's fine. That's fine.
and,
Okay,
sorry,
sorry.
I was looking at you.
That's okay. You're good.
We do need signs.
Yeah, those are the ones that I.
Okay.
Did you want to help me with this? I'm actually with anyone else on this one.
What number is the pen?
I don't know yet, I'll have to look it up. I can also let you know.
That's okay. One, two. No, this is the right one, so we just wanna. Your copy. The one that's not stapled. We'll just have this, and then it'll all be ready for you. Okay. Yeah, that's perfect. We will go on. I'm gonna go on one. Right. So, right, the next ordinance in front of you is also introduced at the last meeting. This is the bond ordinance which authorizes the actual bonds and the financing of this project. So I'll just hit the high points. A lot of this, to be honest, is boilerplate language that's required by the RD program. So I'm happy to walk through that, but I also want to be respectful of everyone's. So I'll just hit the high points. This is authorizing the sewer project that you're working with Commonwealth engineers to design and bid out for the town. So they estimate currently that the cost of the project will not exceed $6 million, and you'll see that reference on the first page here. And the town has applied to USDA, which is they are the federal agency which operates the rural development department. They've applied for a grant and been awarded a grant in the amount of not to exceed 4 million. The actual amount is $3.8 million in grant funds. So those are funds that will not need to be paid back for this project. And then the town also has been awarded an additional grant from OPRA, the Indiana Office of Community and Rural Affairs, in the amount of $750,000. So that's really great news for the town for a $6 million project to already have 4.5 or a little over 4.5 in grant funds that will not need to be. So you'll look at the next page. It shows that the maximum authorized amount of the bonds, when these bonds are issued, will be $750,000. And currently the sources and uses that I saw from the financial advisor show that it'll be 743. So just under that $750,000 mark, which is what's anticipated to be issued. That will depend on, you know, like how the bids come back and how all of that looks. And then this is also authorizing the town council to use some funds on hand towards this project as well. It says up to 500. So those amounts will be finalized when the bonds are issued in 2027 or so 2028. So, all right, page 3. This is again authorizing the project not to exceed 6 million. Issues authorizes the issuance of a band. So right now, where we are in the whole process is that we're authorizing the entire project from the entire financing, and we are going to issue a band for the design. So that's going to be in the amount of $397,000. Authorized up here up to 750, but we're not doing that. It's just over about half of that. We'll close in early September. I'll go through the timetable after this. And that will allow Commonwealth to design, put it out to bid, and then there will be another band that's issued to do the construction. And then once everything is done, then the bonds will be issued because rural development does not finance projects until they're constructed. So it's essentially like a bridge loan or construction loan. That's what these bands are. It stands for bond anticipation note, and it's just a temporary financing mechanism until like the design is done. Then temporary financing mechanisms until the construction. Go through rural development, and you issue the actual bond for $750,000. Then the project will be done. The grants will have kicked in to pay for that construction as well. So I know that can be kind of like a confusing timing and concept to think about, but that's where we are. We're at the beginning of 2 different bands and then a bond in a couple of years. Does anyone have questions about that before I move on? Okay, so all right. If you'll see here at the bottom of page 4. So these will be issued through the bonds will be issued through rural development, and that's at an interest rate of not to exceed 2.5%. So currently rural development is between 2 and 2.5%, depends on the quarter and the year. Just how interest rates are looking, but that is literally the cheapest money available out there. 2%, 2.5% is unheard of anywhere else. The bonds will be payable solely from the net revenues of the sewage works utility, not general funds, not water funds, not trash funds, just the sewage works utility funds will be used to pay back these bonds. I'm going to point that out. On page 6, the next couple of pages, that's the form of the actual bond, what will look like when it's issued. So this is just the form language. All of this will be pulled out separately. It's a standalone document. But we put in this in the authorization document so everybody sees what the language will be and sees what it will look like. So that's the next several pages actually. And then there's several pages that talk about, well, I guess the redemption is first. The band that will be issued now will be prepayable upon 20 days notice. That is not the plan to prepay these things, but that just allows some flexibility that if the construction is ready to start, if they're ready to go, then you can issue another and prepay the band off and then move on with the next portion of the project. And starting on page 12, it talks a lot about different funds. So there's like different requirements, like when the revenues come in, there's separate, not going commingled with other revenues. And I know Pam already does this stuff because otherwise they'd be getting dinged on audits and things, but this just specifies out, like, there has to be an operation maintenance fund, there needs to be a construction fund, a bonding and trust account, a reserve fund, which we referenced earlier, just to make sure that there's adequate coverage to pay back, the debt, RP. And then section 18 is on page 15, talks about, the rate covenant. So the town is making a covenant via the ordinance to make sure that there's adequate rates in place to support the debt service and operation and maintenance of the sewage works utility and pay back this project. So that's what we just did with the prior ordinance, raising the rates to make sure that there is that coverage. But I'm gonna just point that out, that that is like a requirement, based on the ordinance here. So, does anyone have any questions? The rest of it is a lot of boilerplate language about making sure these are tax exempt and, how additional bonds can be issued, and that sort of thing, but none of that's really relevant right now, but it needs to be nice. So, Exhibit A, which is the very last page, has a project description from Commonwealth as well. Are there any questions about? Especially if not getting answer them otherwise. What's the main thing? We just want to make sure you need this front caption and then the top caption,
Okay,
and then, it's for your consideration for adoption.
an ordinance concerning the construction of additions and improvements to sewage works of the town of Michigan Town, Indiana, the issuance of revenue bonds to provide the cost thereof, the collection, segregation, and distribution of the revenues of said sewage works, the safeguarding of the interests of the owners of said revenue bonds, other matters connected therewith, including the issuance of notes and anticipation of bonds, and repealing ordinances inconsistent herewith.
I'll make a motion to adopt the ordinance.
All in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
And
Oh.
all of them up here.
And this is gonna be, I looked it up, this is gonna be two, the first one, and the three ordinance should be two, and that one's good for it.
Great, thanks.
The one I just read was three, the way it says.
And then while you're signing that, I will go ahead. I also passed out a timetable just so everybody's aware of what we're about to go through for issuance. So this was the date of the public hearing, the rate ordinance and the bond ordinance. And, later this week, the Indiana Bond Bank, which is the agency that the interim financing, that are always issued through the bond bank for rural development. They will have a meeting on the 13th to approve Michigan Town's participation in the program. And then we also publish a notice of adoption that day based on, thank you, this ordinance that was just adopted, and that will kick off the 20-day objection period, which is your objection period required by statute. So once that expires, we'll be able to close on these bonds. So that objection period will run on September 2. So on September 3, I'll email Pam and I'll say, hey, were there any objections? And she'll respond back. And assuming that there are none, we will close with the Indiana Bond Bank on the $197,000 bond on September 4. So the funds will be available at that time, deposited into the town's account, and then Commonwealth will continue with their design portion of this project. So does anyone have any questions on that timetable? You do at any time, just feel free to email me, my card is there, we can ask for my contact information as well.
Okay.
And now we have. Fill anyone in on the nuances of these financing, so, thank you. I do. Okay. Let's give you all one. Well, I have bond ordinances too, if you want. One second.
This was four.
Three.
Thank you.
Okay. State attorney processing that Russell.
Have a letter that's. That was on down tomorrow with them and a made two $100 payments. Two in June, but he hadn't made any payments since then, so the letter is basically telling him they're getting sick, wants to garnish your paycheck.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
You find it.
Yeah, sure thing.
Thank you. I've got his employer information. Good address on it, hopefully. He makes $28.50 an hour, he has no garnishments, got garnishable wages.
All right. Sewage plant, right? Sewage plant projects and grants, engagement letter from the both, McDonald, yeah, Boeing, Kenny, Evans, law attorney. Fine.
This is just formalizing the work that you've already started.
Okay,
So if this could just be approved and signed,
okay,
it just requires your. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the engagement for the contract or get that. Yeah.
Thank you.
With, Kenny.
sorry.
No, thank you.
Second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? If I sign them, for hand, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, the CCMG matching grant to reseal the streets.
I don't know any updates there on contact.
Yeah, about since that meeting with us and Rob, I thought they'd be here by now and seal the cracks that they're supposed to be this year.
Well, it talked like it could be August and September, I think, when they were.
Oh, maybe. Not a big project, only a day.
W Marshall job description from West.
I don't know that we did anything with the description. I didn't see anything from last meeting, or if we were just discussing the hirings. I'm not sure where we're at on that.
Okay, let's say, I don't think we talked about it.
I think we're still beating the bushes, once you found it.
Yeah. Okay, well,
Well, maybe that's Lindsay.
I think that was 2 meetings.
yeah, okay. Building permits,
We don't have any to.
the building permits, Jeff.
Hey, Jeff,
Yes.
got any building permit?
Any guy building permits?
What?
Okay. Sure.
He just communicated with companies to do the crack seal.
Oh, okay.
Never project.
They're down to one sealing crew, so maybe 2 or 3 months.